this, and let's go to live scene. Oh, I see people. I see people. Let me switch. Let me switch over there. Hello to everybody. Hello everybody. Okay, we'll be starting momentarily. Momentarily.
Hello, chat.
All right. Let me get my act together here. Okay. Hello. Hello. And welcome. And hi everyone. Okay, so right. So let me go over here, and I need to show you guys my screen so you can partake of what you guys need to see. Okay, so this should be what you need. Is that, can you guys see that on the Discord?
Yep.
Okay, very good. All right, so um, welcome, welcome. Um, I am thankful for everybody that's here, and we're gonna have a good time. I have a feeling. I have a feeling everything's gonna be all right. Okay, so that being said, let's get into it. Again, welcome to I'm Human. Thank you for being here, and for Ricky, thank you for being here. Siri may or may not be here, and it's possible we may have a guest. Maybe Daily shows up. And Girthquakes, welcome, as well as Wander, welcome. Human, welcome. And so we're gonna dive in, and we're gonna do the last segment of Survivors, and we got some good stuff lined up. So before we do that, let me just share a brief moment about the casting of Frank Stone. And so, Girthquakes, you may want to plug your ears for like the next 45 seconds if you don't want a spoiler. But anyhow, this is, and I apologize for like the doubling up on the screen, but it's just how the cookie crumbles. But this is the very end of the game where our heroes that we've been playing like all game long, this is the conclusion of their adventure, and you guys can see this in the voice chat, right?
Yeah.
Good. All right, here we go. So this is how their adventure ends. Linda did escape. She did escape, but not the way she thought. She did not survive and escape the way she thought. Oh my gosh. All of them are here.
We got out.
And so we find a little visualization from casting of Frank Stone about how that the survivors uh, can they can be wandering around thinking they're escaping or wandering around thinking they're running from something, but at the end of the day, they see the fire, the campfire off in the distance, and everybody finds the same place. And so that's just a little video clip that I thought would fit in to our discussion. But it's interesting that the main killer he finds himself at the edge of the forest as well. But that's another discussion for another time. But that being said, our criteria for tonight is going to be as it was 2 weeks ago, and we're going to judge our survivors off of two main criterias. And the first could be, um, well, are they going to be strong and thrive, or are they going to be weak and perish, or are they just fit enough to survive? And so that's kind of our judging criteria as we get into it. But that being said, let's get into our first example is Sable. And Sable Ward is from chapter 31. And there's a lot that could be said here, but I'm telling you what, she is a rock star. Wow. Some highlights that I saw in her lore. This is just a little piece of it. Let me quick get music running here so we can have a nicer environment here. Okay, that's better. Okay. So she loves horror movies, and she found the occult exciting. Oh, that's so cool. I like that. I like that. And so she's like the ideal uh, goth girl stereotype, you could say. And so her philosophy was death stalks us all and no one gets out alive. Isn't that like very goth? Um, Her friend helped her get a job, and when she started at this little coffee shop, she started a radio show because there was nothing else to do in her little town. And she started theorizing that, hey, you know what? There's a lot of people missing in my town, and maybe there's something to it. And so she started getting callers and discussion back and forth. And she yapped it up with her co host. And some of the callers said this. Some suggested that they were built on a fracture. Another went on to say that a fracture is an overlap between worlds. That's a critical thing we need to remember for later on in this live stream. Another caller is like, "Hey, I think this is actually something a bit deeper, and it's related to a cult devoted to demons, forgotten demons." And then, of course, they kept on getting frenzied callers. And another caller, listen to this, defines the fractures as a cosmic buffet for an elder god that feeds on pain, fear, and misery. And isn't that interesting? And so I'm gonna jump past when she got caught by the entity, but she was with her friend Michaela. We know Michaela is another survivor, and she was at this Halloween festival, and she's like, "Hey, Michaela, why don't you tell like a really crazy, scary story?" And Michaela was kind of reluctant, but started talking and telling her story. And then a strange black fog just comes up on the stage, envelops her, and she disappears. The crazy thing is she does a little research, and she finds that another person some people that disappeared and one person that survived but was at like a mental hospital, and she's like, "Hey, what do you think happened?" And she's like, "Oh no, you definitely don't want to go to the theater. That's bad stuff. Don't go there. Please don't go there." And of course, Sable's like, "You know what? I think I'm gonna go there." So she goes to the theater, finds the secret spot, and she finds a stairwell, and starts going down, 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 down. For 10 minutes, she goes down this stairwell until she sees a fog rising. The same kind of fog that took Michaela. And instead of a normal sane person who would be like, "Oh, this is dangerous, I should like head out," she thought about the terrifying creatures and the sadistic killers and endless horror, and she quickly decided she wasn't going to let her best friend have all the fun. And I thought to myself, well, if anybody's ready to like face the horrors of the entity and survive that twisted world, it might very well be Sable, possibly. And so she wasn't taken. She's like, "Oh, I like this. I think this is going to be like an exciting adventure." And she just walks into the fog willingly. She could have escaped, but she chose to keep on going down the stairwell, and she willingly entered the fog. Some of her...
Note,
yeah,
by the way,
yeah, go ahead.
I was curious when I saw the name Michaela, so I did a quick Google search.
Yeah.
The Michaela it mentions is Michaela Reed, another survivor in this game.
Yeah. Yep. You are absolutely
so I think
correct.
that's pretty great.
She's the nice witch. This is
the original Boone girl.
Yeah. And so skills. What do you think? I don't know. Let me click on a website here. Let me go to a website where it tells the skills. I don't have the definitions right on me. Sorry, I walked in right before live stream start. Let me get DBD, and let's get to Sable, and I will be prepared for the next victim. I mean the next survivor. Okay, so Sable, I'm looking at her skills. So she has something that's basement related.
Yep.
Can see the killer after being unhooked. She seems really killer oriented. But physically, I don't know. I think she's probably, it doesn't indicate that she's strong or fast or that she's any more significant than any other girl, or any other female. So I think she's very normal physically, but mental fortitude, I think that she is like absolutely in her environment. She's absolutely going to vibe where other people are breaking down. She's be like, I like this. This is my kind of deal. I think that her obsession with killers and death is the very thing that keeps her from breaking. Is that she's like, oh, there's more to this game than I realized. I think when other survivors are starting to break down mentally, she's just like, I like it. Let's have some more. Perks and ability, whatever. I don't think she thrives and escapes though. I think she happily survives, and this is like her ideal utopia.
I
What do you think?
if you don't mind me jumping in here,
Yeah.
when she released in the trailer for her release,
Mm-hmm.
it was revealed of her looking for Michaela.
Yes, that is true.
So, for I think most of her specialties are in the mental fortitude, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So, she would probably die like a lot, but she would last a lot longer than others.
Yeah, and
So,
I think her willingness to enter into the fog and her desire to find her friend is, I think it's obsession levels. And so I do think physically, yeah, I agree, she's going to get killed in a lot of matches, but she's going to somehow enjoy it um, because of the vibe. And Ricky, I know you're kind of a little under the weather, so I'm not going to obligate you, but you're welcome to chime in if you'd like to chime in. Otherwise, we'll just continue on.
I think she very easily survives
Mhm.
for a long while. I think, if she's working with other people, she has the possibility to find escape. But even if that were to come about, I don't think she takes that chance unless she's able to take Michaela with her.
Ah, that's a good point. So you think that if she had an opportunity to thrive and escape, she'd be like, I'm not doing it unless I can take Michaela with me. But if Michaela is like, hey, there's a door, we might be able to escape, that they'd happily like run off. I think that's interesting that, and that's true because she entered the fog searching for Michaela. She investigated the theater because of Michaela. Other parts of her lore indicate that that was basically her only friend in that town. Everybody else treated her like an oddball. So I think she's in her environment, and otherwise, I the more I read about her, I'm like, yeah, I like her. I like the vibe. She's gonna have a time in the entities realm for sure. All right, let's go on to our next one. This is actually series first choice, and I apologize on the pronunciation. I don't want to embarrass myself and butcher a person's name, so we'll just call him Y. How's that? Y.
Yoichi.
Right? And so the I didn't know this, but did you know that this character is from the horror movie Ring? I didn't know that. Maybe I'm just living on a rock or something, but um, this character in the movie Ringo, I think it's called Ringu or Ringo, the original Japanese version. He's this little kid. So this is the kid version of our Dead by Daylight adult version, like as an adult. And obviously they can't put a kid in Dead by Daylight, so they had to be like, hey, we're gonna like age him up a bit, and let's see if how he handles Dead by Daylight. But that's the actor who plays in the movie Ringo or Ring. The American version is just Ring. Um, Interesting. His mom and dad seem to have died because of a curse. Another thing, he in his desire to figure out these mysteries, two of his students disappear, and he's like, "Ah, oh, that's really odd." And so he starts digging around, searching, and he searches the areas of parapsychology, cryptozoology, theology, which is the study of like deities and gods, folk history, and but he started getting derailed away from his teaching career, right? And eventually he was considered eccentric and a liability. And the university is like, hey, man, you gone a bit crazy. Why don't you just like go away? So he loses his job. And it kind of bummed him out, the best I could tell. And the ghost of his father returns and says, hey, keep on searching and going on the course you've chosen. Time passes, and he finds this place that's called the islands known as the Seven Hunters, and he saw this vlogger where 4 vloggers disappear, and he's like, hey, that sounds kind of like my old students. I think I'm gonna go check it out. And so he like approaches, the local, you know, person that handles the boats or whatever, and he's like, hey, I want to ride out to this island. And the guy is like, no, you really don't want to go there, like you need to like turn back, the weather's like going bad. He's like, nah, I ain't going back. And his boat gets wrecked on the rocks. And what we remember, he doesn't remember anything after that wreck except falling in the water. He remembers swimming to the landing where he saw his father standing, the ghost of his father standing at the gallery of the lighthouse beckoning him. He remembered staggering through a thick black fog as he climbed the stairs. And then he remembered the water level rising with every step until the frothing mouth of the raging ocean swallowed him whole. And so the fog took him via water, the best I could tell. Now, I was reading it, and I'm like, well, I wonder if there's anything on the internet about 7 hunters, right? And so I did a little research, and this is an actual place right off the coast of Scotland. It's called Flannan Isles, and it's an actual place right off the coast of Scotland, northwest off their coast. And the curious thing is, it's considered one of the Scottish greatest mysteries, in that there were 3 lighthouse workers, whatever, basically to tend to the lighthouse, and they all disappeared in 1900. And there's nowhere to go. There's no boats. And the 3 people responsible for the lighthouse are just like gone. The island is completely like empty. And James, Donald, and Thomas disappeared in like a real life story, disappeared into like thin air. No one knows where they went. So either they were lost at sea, like they drowned, or like someone from the coast, came and picked them up and then brought them away from the island, but they were not found. The reference to the lighthouse being automated, in real life, this lighthouse, I circled it in red. Can you guys see the little picture of the little spot, little speck?
Yeah.
In real life, this lighthouse was automated in 1971. And to the day, there's like this little concrete pad where helicopters can fly in, like drop in maintenance crews, supplies, and so now the only way that this island is accessible is via helicopter, and it's assumed in a rare case maybe boats, but it's probably more convenient by helicopter. So this place is based on a real life mystery. So instead of it being 2 students that disappeared or 4 vloggers, in real life, on this island, 3 people, employees that watch the warehouse, disappeared. And to the day, no one knows where they went to. And as for like, let me go to the next place. What do you think about what do we think about skills? I actually don't have this survivor in my collection, so I have to look him up. Glancing at the perks. A speed haste, not like crazy. And whenever another survivor is injured, they can see your aura, so they could like run to you. You can heal fast. You can heal them faster. And then if you stun a killer, you can suppress your scratch marks, pool blood, and if you're injured, your grunts of pain for up to 7 seconds. I think the parental guidance is probably his best evasion skill. Um, he seems very driven, but even to his own demise. Physically, I think he's normal. Mentally, he's very engaged, but he can't read the room, and so he obsesses with whatever's in front of him. Perks, I'd say are mid. They're not like crazy great. They're not like horribly bad. I do think parental guidance would keep him alive in a handful of matches, provided he's willing to be stealthy, as long as he's not showing off. So I think he's a strong survivor, but he's not. He's not going to thrive. I don't see him getting out without help. And he's going to last a fair amount of time, would be my guess, because of the parental guidance is really handy. Human, what do you think?
I think he would probably survive a bit longer. I don't think he's like too special in anything he does.
No.
Uh, that's about all I got.
Yeah, gotcha. No, that's perfectly cool. All right, let's go on to our next victim here. Or
I
go ahead.
think I like one thing that's catching me about him was Perks' empathetic connection or empathic connection. Makes me think he can like feel and sense the emotions of the people around him.
So
which I think would that would wear down on him over time. As other people around him start to get more hopeless and helpless, that sensing all of that emotion would eventually wear down on him to the point where I think he actually eventually perishes. I think he
really.
eventually gives up.
So you think his connection to the spirit realm is going to just wear him down, plus all the pressure of being in the trials, and he's like just going to grind out and like be toasted. Yeah, interesting. I could see that. Because he gets so obsessed for the pursuit of knowledge that he train wrecked his own career. He couldn't like balance he couldn't balance priorities, and I think under stress that part of him, like the decision making part, like crumbles. Interesting. So we got kind of survive, but maybe like eventually we're going to be perishing. He's going to wear down because of the psychic bond. Interesting. I could see that. I could certainly see that. Ellen Ripley. I have a confession to make. I heckled her in Discord chat. I said she blew up a spaceship without like first checking it out and unnecessarily destroyed a space station or a spaceship. And her little shuttle ended up getting, filled with the alien anyway. And so, yeah, I mean, it's commendable that she picked up the cat. What was the cat's name? Let me see. Where's the cruise cat named Jones? So I looked on the internet, and I think the best we can tell, that's Jones that she's holding in that picture. But I think your awareness
Jones
is
come into the game too.
I don't know. There is actually
Warriors 2.0.
maybe, and then we do know we haven't picked her. We actually passed her up this particular series, but Nia actually has a pet rat that's in the universe. She has like a charm that references a pet rat. So Nia has a pet. The clown has the horse Maurice, and the only other living animal or pet is Jones. And so how did she get taken by the entity? She's in her pressure suit in this little evac shuttle, and she thinks she's opening the airlock and ejecting out the alien. And so she thinks this ship is secure. She records her report. She willingly goes into hypersleep, and all of a sudden, while she's getting, shut down by that cryopod, then the fog slips into her cryopod, and all of a sudden she closes her eyes and opens them in another world. So as she thinks she's gonna sleep it off until she can be rescued, well, then the entity's like, "Nah, you coming this way," and basically she's taken by the fog. And this is another picture of her in the alien I don't know. Physically, I know in the movies, and I apologize, that's a typo. That we're still on Ellen. It was just a typo. My apologies. Um, Physically, I mean, she's probably capable. I mean, if she's on like a space mission, she's probably like peak physical condition would be my guess. Mental fortitude, like she's blowing up ships. She's like not like checking around the corners. She's like just doing very like off the cuff things. I think her mental fortitude is going to get her absolutely ended. I see her absolutely perishing. I don't even care about the perks. She's not making it. I don't see her making it in the long term. She's perishing because of her recklessness, and she does not have situational awareness. Human, what do you think? What you think?
I'm
Ellen
in the
Ripley.
same boat on that one. She has the survivability, like she knows kind of how to keep herself around, but I think that she would give out mentally pretty quickly.
Yeah, that could be the case.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I'm in the same boat. Like it lists her as in her overview on the Dead by Daylight fandom website. It lists her as being capable and pragmatic. So I think she does pretty well at first, but one of the things of being pragmatic is looking at things practically, sensibly, and realistically. And
right.
I think she'd very quickly get a grasp on the idea that no one's meant to survive this and give in.
Oh, so you think it's like it's unavoidable, so let's just end it and be done with it. And interesting. Okay, let me type something here. I'm gonna do a little poll for the chat to see what the what the chat thinks about good old Ellen Ripley. Pikachu, if you think she's gonna survive or thrive, and put the little skull. It didn't copy properly. Let's do the skull. The skull. If you think she's gonna like get ended, let's go on to our next character. This I believe was Siri's next choice. Her last choice was Tari, and I could be pronouncing it wrong, but Tari Kane. Now, my goodness, I read her story. She is a psycho killer. Psycho killer. Uh, Ricky is like, vote or I'll find out where you live. Wow, that is persuasive. So basically, she was born to parents who were in a cult, and the cult basically worshipped the entity, although they called that entity the Black Talon. It's interesting that there was places that this group, the Disciples of Black Talon, they found places. Basically, they found places where the entity showed up, where there was like odd activities, people disappearing, like crazy deaths. And they believed that these places were overlaps of where the entity existed. And so they called these overlaps where these crazy, mysterious disappearances, deaths, just crazy situations, called them the bleed or the bleeds, and they believed that secret knowledge and technology was hidden in these places, and they'd set up camp. Let me go to the next slide. They'd set up camp, and they'd build like living quarters, storage areas, laboratories, and they basically would set up camp outside of these bleed overlaps, and then they'd try to research the entity's actions at these places. Well, her lore continues, and her dad, I believe her mom, goes into the bleed, into this this realm, and time passes, and she and her brother, I believe it's her brother if I recall, go into the bleed without gear. And it was supposed that you had to have hazmat suits to survive whatever existed in the bleed, or you would become sick or whatever. So she goes in, tries to rescue her dad, and comes back out of the bleed, and nothing physically like touches her. Like she's not affected. She doesn't get sick. She doesn't get nauseated. But she, in her own words, she thinks that darkness touched her heart, and she began to have visions of like hunting and sacrifice. She's basically having visions of the trial ground hunts. And she's seeing all the survivors running around getting hunted and the victims getting sacrificed at the end of the matches. And so she believed that her visions were omens, and she thought, "Oh, I'm going to be a disciple of the Black Talon." Well, time progresses on, and she's sent on these missions. She goes to more and more sites, but more and more coldness starts taking over her heart, and she feels impervious, indestructible, unstoppable. All of the missions are successful, and as a trusted servant of the Black Talon, she has no longer felt like she's prey. She's now beginning to feel like she's a predator, and that like every place she's sent to, she's winning. She's finding the relic. She's finding the tasks that she's been given to be like achievable, and she ends up finding this guy who is like a traitor, basically. And they're like, "Hey, why don't you end this guy? Here's a knife. Finish him, and then you can join the club. You can join the club for real as the final stage of being a disciple of the Black Talon." So just as she's about ready to like end this guy with a dagger, the fog shows up, surrounds her, the unbeliever, and they disappear. When the fog clears, her sacrifice is gone, and then she's in the night in the Black Talon's domain, aka the entity's domain, and she herself isn't like a disciple or a predator as she originally thought, but rather she's gonna be one of the survivors, and from time to time a sacrifice. In terms of skills, I think they're pretty okay. Physical fortitude, I think she's like the evil version of Laura Croft. Like she has like the knowledge, she has the ambition, she has the physical ability. Like from a physical perspective, she absolutely can get stuff done. Absolutely can survive. She might be like a very strong female, like from a physical perspective. Um, Doing all these missions, all this physical training, all of these missions that she's been working on, I think physically she can handle it. Mentally, wow, I don't think she's going to make it as a survivor, but I think she might get turned to killer. I think this is our second survivor that is going to become a killer over the passage of time. I don't think she's going to escape as a survivor. I think she's going to survive because of her physical fortitude, her mental fortitude, but I think she doesn't thrive and escape as a survivor, but I think the entity is going to give her a deal. Like, hey, I can make your life a lot easier if you become a killer. And I think due to the fact, and she has a background with the disciples of the Black Talon, and she's already had a willingness to kill people, I think she absolutely is given the killer deal by the entity as time progresses. What you think, Human?
I think she would probably survive. I don't think she has much of the ability to be able to escape on her own. She doesn't seem to have the mindset or skills to be able to, compared to some of the other people.
Really? So you think that her knowledge of archaeology and of artifacts, that's handy in the real world, but that's not going to help her like in the entities realm? Like it's not usable. It's not usable knowledge.
It might be a little bit. I still just think the way she, with her background, she might not be able to, compared to some of the other people anyway.
Interesting. But we find that this survivor, Tari, appears to be the first one we've come in contact with that has a direct awareness of the entity and is like, hey, I want to get on Team Entity. So now we're starting to see survivors that aren't like, hey, I'm wandering down the street and all of a sudden like a fog enveloped me and I'm gone. But now like these are studious survivors that they're doing their homework. They're like checking the lore, they're checking the history books, they're reading the scrolls, they're reading the books, and she wants to be on Team Entity.
If she eventually figures enough out, she might be a killer instead of a sacrifice, because she doesn't want to be the sacrifice. I think that might be the extent she goes.
Yeah,
I just don't think she escapes.
See, I have I have a weird thought process. I think she becomes a killer, and I have a thought process as to how this might actually happen. My
Okay.
thought process is one day she just goes like, "Hey guys, I found the way out. Come over here," and leads some people into the edge of the forest and then kills them. And then he goes, "You know what? Good on you. You're a killer now." I
Interesting.
think she definitely I think at some point she would definitely do something like that. She seems the type to trick other survivors into following her off into the forest and then killing them.
Interesting. So you see her as like a toxic Nia player. That's like basically
Yeah,
the second killer in the match, basically.
yeah. Like maybe she does that thinking, oh, if I help, kill these people over and over again, the entity will find favor within me and stop making me be a
Ah,
sacrifice type of thing.
that's interesting. Interesting thought. I had not pondered that exact possibility, but I could see
Similar
that.
to the Yeah, similar to the some of the reasons for like the Crusades in
Mhm.
in history, just like, hey, God will love me more if I take back the Holy Land. It's what
Mm,
she's doing. She's like, the entity will love me more if I kill people for him, and so
that's
she just starts doing it herself.
that's interesting. But yeah, I think we all agree she's definitely going the killer path. That's interesting. Now, let me see. Who had Jonah? Was
I
you
did.
did? All right. So carry on. What you got? If you'd like, or I can read it. Your choice. What? How are you feeling?
Um, Let me take a quick glance at this. All right, so Jonah Vasquez is like a Mexican me, really good at math. Pretty great. Complex equations, continually playing them out, determine how and why we exist, finding instructions and patterns. He probably fits with the Ren lyric very well, where he says, "What's the price of creativity? It's losing your mind and seeing patterns in the places where the patterns are hard to find." I
Hmm.
think that's definitely Jonah Vasquez.
Right.
Anyways, on his 16th birthday, he received an unaddressed card. There was nothing but a bunch of numbers. He immediately recognized it as GPS coordinates, discovering they led to a location in Chile. The other numbers meant nothing to him. Over time, he abandoned the puzzle, convinced it was flawed, went to university, and was hired as a codebreaker by the CIA. On the first day, written in an employee handbook were the same numbers from his 16th birthday. Um, he was given an assignment, classified to all but a few. His research on the signal stations reopened a project under a veil of secrecy. What started with signal stations led him to something even more baffling: horror podcasts.
Right. Now I'm curious. Like, is that a thing? Is that like scary story podcasts? Do they exist out there?
Scary
I
story podcasts are all over the place.
are
Yeah,
really okay. Okay.
yeah. This is that's the whole thing. Have you heard of like creepy
I
pastas?
have. I
Like
have. Yeah.
that's there's people who do podcasts based off of that. Some of them make up their
Oh.
own. Some of them
Okay.
do it based off of like actual
Right.
old horror stories.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So some other things I will bring up, and maybe as you're reading through, maybe there's something you want to elaborate on. But it appears that as he's like searching all these stories and listening to all his podcasts, he keeps on saying this. He keeps on finding the same pattern with the message "sacrifice is rebirth." Which, what's the deal of if you get killed in the trial grounds? You go back to the campfire. You wait for your turn. You just sitting at the campfire. Go back and it's just rinse and repeat. You get sacrificed, but you get rebirthed at the campfire. Rinse and repeat. And but the interesting thing, his breakthrough of when he finally realized what all the numbers meant was when he was studying a story about vampires. That I thought was interesting. I don't know the significance of that. And then he realizes that hey, I need to go back to Chile and investigate this further. So he goes to the coordinates and then he's thinking about well, maybe the codes aren't from like, maybe they're not related to like the modern like geographical data. Maybe it's like something else. And so he starts thinking about like calendar numbers. And then he realizes it's his birthday with the location he's at on this exact date. So it showed his birthday, which you remember from the first part of his lore, he got this card on his 16th birthday. So assuming he's in his late 20s, maybe even in his 30s, that particular message was sent to him at least 10 to 20 years before he figured it out. And then as he's standing there out in this graveyard, he starts hearing the crows. But prior, I don't have the space for it, but basically a part of it is when he arrived, he found like just blood all over the place and just a bunch of crows. And then he got taken. Here you can share how he got taken. This is pretty crazy.
Considered that he was once more a child, and the numbers nothing but a horrible dream. Trapped in nostalgic thoughts, he didn't notice a dark fog seeping in from the grass, swirling its way towards him. Crows flew in from the branches, screeching relentlessly, flying in a circle above. It was too late when he realized the scent on the breeze was no longer citrus. It was blood.
It was blood and gore.
One thing I want to bring up real quick. This
Yeah.
reminds me of there's a movie I haven't seen yet, but I really want to.
Yeah.
Where the concept of it is it starts with this class, like 60 years ago, making a time capsule.
Okay.
And this one girl in the class is just writing a string of numbers over and over, just a ton of numbers and seemingly random numbers. And when they open the time capsule years later, it goes to just, random people who live in the town. This guy gets it and he's like, huh, that's kind of weird. And he's like, I wonder if this means anything. He starts looking into it and he starts realizing like the first string of numbers is 911 and it's 911 and then he can't, but then there's a bunch of, and then there's the number of people who died in 9/11, and then there's some other numbers after that he can't figure out. But then the next set of numbers again is a date where some horrible event happened, and the number of people that died, and then another set of numbers that seems nonsensical, and just it continues like that. Actually, the first number wasn't 9/11, but that was one of the numbers. Anyways, and he eventually just what he realizes and discovers is that it's a like the first set of numbers is a date, the second set of numbers is a casualty, and then through some extra research discovers that the third set of numbers is the location, is the coordinates of the event. And so it reminds me of that movie of just like a set of seemingly random numbers telling the date and location of a tragedy and the number of people who will die as a result of the tragedy.
Right. So, on a real life note, I have read that I don't know if people have ever heard of like the number stations, like some of these old Soviet era radio stations that are just like giving off like random codes. I read that one of the messages recently changed and it's like outputting like one of the stations is outputting a different message now, which like some of these number stations like play the same thing for years and years and years and they never change, the message doesn't change. But I've read that one of the stations like something changed in the message recently, like in the last 2 to 3 months, which is kind of interesting because
numbers, Mason, what do they mean?
Right. So so I like the fact that Jonah is like a numbers guy. He's definitely like, and this is also we see CIA dabbling again. They hired the doctor as a killer, and they hired Jonah right out of high school as basically a code breaker. And so the guy's like insanely smart. Physical fortitude. What do you think? What we'll let you lead on this score. What do you think?
I mean, being CIA, he would have gotten some level of physical training. It's not confirmed, but it's common belief that people who go into the CIA get as part of their training, go through torture simulation. And they have to pass torture simulation, which they have to both be the torturer and be the one being tortured in this simulation, in order to continue on in the CIA. And this is like there are even people who claim to be former CIA agents who talk about this.
Yeah, and that's
Um,
especially if they have any field engagement, like if they're anything
yeah,
related to the
especially if
field.
they do
Yep,
anything in the field.
absolutely.
So, given that, he has to have some level of physical fort and mental fortitude, like some impressive level of both physical and mental fortitude to get through that torture
Hmm.
simulation. I actually saw a video recently where some YouTuber hired former CIA agents to do some of this torture simulation on them to show them what it's like, and how the CIA does this interrogations while still remaining legal. And it is brutal. So to get through that kind of training, you build up a ton of physical and mental fortitude if you don't have it already.
Right.
So I think after going through something like that, with plus the knowledge he already has, the incredible intelligence, and recognition for patterns and stuff, I think he can definitely find his way out. He definitely has the capacity to do so.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Human, what do you think?
I concur. All of it lines up for that. There's not really much of an argument against.
Yeah, no, I agree. The mind is there. His interaction with the CIA like prepared him. I didn't even tell you the lore of how he infiltrated like a rebel organization in some like random country and started like stealing from their bank accounts and giving it to the people. um, so like he has like off the charts mental fortitude and physically, like again, if he's like working for the CIA and he is like in like actual like field uh you know places before he got sent to the number station, I think he absolutely is capable, and I think he gets out, and I think he takes people with him. I think he's definitely getting out, so he's gonna thrive. This, if Daly was in the area, she would probably be presenting this, but this is a part of the Resident Evil project, Chapter 25, Ada Wong, and I'll admit I have not watched but the first Resident Evil movie, and I don't know, she's an assassin, a weapons expert, martial arts training. She might have been working for the Umbrella Corporation, and if she was, or well, I'm sorry, was she a corporate spy working against the Umbrella Corporation? Those are some evil Muppets right there. Was she loyal to Wesker? Isn't he the killer of that chapter?
Yeah.
Interesting. So we don't even know, based on our lore, whether she's like in it for herself, or if she's working for like the killer, if she's working for like the good guys. She is like moral gray, and in the end of the day, she gets captured, almost killed in a ritual sacrifice. She finds a way of escaping and disappears. How did
Who
she get
picks her?
How did she get captured? Unknown how she got captured. Unknown. It is assumed that when she escaped, that it happened during that time. Uh, her skills. What do you think? What do you think, human? What do you got? What do you got for Ada Wong?
I'd give her a survive. She's pretty physically able. She's got enough skills and resourcefulness to be able to avoid being killed most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she would be able to. Like, she might figure out some stuff, but I don't think she'd be able to fully escape on her own.
So you think that she could escape with help?
If she were with a group that also knows what they're doing, she might.
So she would be like, "Hey, this is kind of the vibe that I get. Say she meets us, and we're the 4 squad. She'd be like, "Hey, what do you know about the entity? What do you think's happening here?" And then like Ricky would share his piece. And hey, Mel, what do you think? Well, I think blah blah blah. Hey, human, what do you think about this? And then I think she would be like an information dealer. And
Yeah,
so
she'd be the knowledge person.
yeah. And so I think And then sometimes she'd be like, nah, I ain't gonna tell you. Like, you didn't bring anything to the table. Like, nah, you'll just have to figure it out on your own. I think she's cold enough to do that. So I see her as like a morally gray. Like, what is going to help her in the moment? And I think that's what's driving her. But I think she's very capable of surviving. But I don't think I agree with Human. I don't think she's getting out unless she has like an intellectual teammate to kind of help
If
connect the dots.
her and like what was her name from before? Sable. If her and Sable managed to find stuff from the lab, Vigo's lab and stuff like that, they probably would together.
Right.
But individually, I don't think so.
Right. Interesting. All
Yes,
right.
I
Go
see
ahead.
it a little bit differently for her. Just with the fact that she was an assassin and possibly a double agent. Um, I think it seems as though she was likely working alone. I think she could figure out how to escape over time by herself.
Really? Okay. Carry on.
And even if she can't figure it out by herself, she'd be very good at figuring out ways to get people to trust her and give her whatever information they have.
Hmm.
And then suddenly she'd just disappear and they'd never hear from her again, type of thing.
But
It'd be
then
like, well,
she would be constantly accumulating information that would help her cause, even if she
yeah,
decided to go solo. Like, hey, those
yeah.
Muppets don't know what they're doing, but they gave me other info, and then she just disappears.
Yeah, and then
Interesting.
I think she could escape on her own. I don't think she does initially, because in her lore it says she's after the parasite or the virus or whatever.
Yeah.
Wesker's thing, the Las Plagas parasite.
Yes.
So I think once she figures out how to escape, she keeps going until she can get some sample of the parasite, or at least learn how to obtain it in the normal world. And then
So you think
escape.
she knows what she wants to be looking for, and then every match she enters in, she's like, okay, I learned this last match, but I need to know about this, and she throws matches to like get a force path towards what she's driving at.
Yeah, like
Interesting.
I think she's very intentional. She's very intentional about what she does, and she very much has the capacity to escape. As a double agent working alone assassin, she very much has the potential and the ability to manipulate people into doing what she wants them to do, and then finding her way out by herself.
Interesting. So we have another survivor in this chapter, Rebecca Chambers. Now, I'll admit, I don't remember Rebecca Chambers. She must have been in a different Resident Evil than the one I saw. But anyhow, what's her deal? She's like graduated from college at 17. Like that's pretty impressive. So she's a smart cookie. She worked as a police officer. She was dispatched by the STARS program, which is basically like like a military branch of like some police department. She was a field medic. Uh, she's exploring an abandoned train, and she discovered basically what is it? The T virus, right? Isn't that the T virus?
I think so.
Yeah, the T virus monsters and mutated animals. So she would have seen like the rabid dogs and like some of the animal mutations. And how did she disappear via the entity via the fog? She was like following some voices and walked into a fog that appeared out of nowhere. And she heard some stuff running after her, and she's like, hey, she goes to grab for a gun. She doesn't have her gun, and she almost got whacked by a club of some kind. So obviously, it appears she didn't go to campfire. It almost seems like she got thrown right into a trial match. She's clambering to her feet and she rushes towards the flickering light in the darkness. Or maybe she was not spawned at the campfire but in the forest, and then basically the killers like chased her to campfire. That's unknown, but yeah. What do we think about Rebecca? Human, what you got? What you think?
I think she would probably survive. She's definitely smart, but I don't think she's the kind of smart that would help her overall, I would put her like comparatively to the last one slightly lower in that she could probably like avoid being sacrificed more often than not after a bit,
Mm-hmm.
but she isn't really able to do much on her own out for like the related to the entity directly.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't see her like I don't see her like prodigy savant level in terms of mental skills. I see her more street smart, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I see
Yeah,
her more
that's where I
street
was
smart,
thinking.
but not like who do we just talk about? The guy who had the
Yeah.
not like Jonah who can like look at numbers and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is what this means." Not like savant level. Smart, but like practical smart. Um,
Yeah.
physically, I think that she'd survive the rigor physically, like the rigors of like one match after another after another after another. Physically, I think she's strong because of her like military background. But I don't see her thriving and escaping alone. If she's gonna escape, she's gonna escape with a group. And her perks indicate that she's like looking for groups. She's like her perks are based on helping others, like healing others and helping others. She's not a lone wolf. She's absolutely going to be finding a group that if she can, and if she does escape, it's going to be with a group. But
Mm-hmm.
it's possible.
I
Ricky,
see
any?
her as kind of like a variant of and Quinn, in that she can definitely survive,
Mm-hmm.
and her focus is very much on group orientation, helping other people, stuff like that.
Right.
Um, I think unlike Tap and Quinn, she doesn't have the capacity to figure out how to escape by herself. But I think like Tap and Quinn, if she were to be part of a group that figured out how to escape, she wouldn't leave just yet. She would go back, get the others, and help them get out as well.
Yeah, yeah. High team synergy. Definitely a team player. Whereas her peer Ada Wong is like, well, screams lone wolf.
Yeah.
Whereas Rebecca is like team player. So definitely, you'd want to, if you were in the trials, you definitely would want to run into Rebecca Chambers. She would definitely like help keep the team alive. All right, now this one is very intriguing to me. Yeah. All
Yay!
right, so you don't have to read it all, but if you want to give like the highlight or the summary highlight reel, you're welcome to do so.
So, uh, basically, he was born into what we can probably assume is some form of noble family. Given that he was third in line to inherit his family's land, that assume that that's some level of nobility there.
Right.
He was sent to train with a knight in the military arts, but he did not like combat training very much. He was more into philosophy, believing that physical violence should be the last resort, if if you resort to it at all.
Right.
Um, he was sent to study um, rare artifacts and focused his studies more on lost civilizations and ancient history, researched forgotten tomes, became an expert on the philosophy and wisdom of ancient secret societies and obscure guardians of knowledge. Guardians present in almost every century and culture, guardians that went by manyfold names depending on the time and region, and were said to be from another dimension, a perfect world. He collected anything on Watchers, Keepers, Guides, Masters, Observers, which I think it's interesting it mentions Observers here because we have the Observer.
We do.
That's
And we got some lore
so
coming up on the
maybe
next slide that's going to make it even more interesting. But
so what I'm theorizing here is that he knows of the Observer and may potentially try and find a way to contact the Observer to learn more.
Okay.
When returning to Italy, a mercenary knight locked him in a dungeon and began a campaign of torture, promising to stop when he revealed the meaning behind a stone.
So just a little quick stop right there is Vito, he wouldn't let the knight kill some guards at this tomb, at this like dig site. And he's like, nah, we need to find another way. We need to just leave. and the knight felt that there was like something significant there, and he's like, "You're gonna tell me what's down there. You're gonna tell me what you know about this place." And Vito wouldn't buckle, and so he got into this bind because he hired this mercenary who he realizes the significance of what's there, what could be there, and then when Vito's like, "Nah, let's just head back home," he like captures him and basically tortures him to try to get information to like help him get back into that tomb with that knowledge.
And it's like the way the entity captured him, he's just sitting in prison there. The knight got bored of torturing people, and just left Vittorio to rot. Um, he scratched some symbols into the stone floor and kept trying to imagine countless sequences while imagining a world like paradise. And as he was about to surrender, he tried one last sequence, and he thought he failed initially. He was pretty much ready to die as the rats were approaching and preparing to feast on his defeated sallow flesh, as it says here.
Right?
So he was like, okay, the rats can have me. And then suddenly a cold, unnatural black fog rose from the stone floor, and within moments he heard cries of anguish and crows circling above him. With difficulty he clambered to his feet and found himself in another world, not the paradise he had expected.
Buyer's remorse, right? But he is a smart cookie. He wasn't a
Yeah.
fighter like his dad wanted, but thankfully his uncle helped him out and set him on an intellectual path. Sad part of his lore though is his uncle gets bit by a snake in one of these tombs and dies from venom like before they can even get out to get help. So he's going through life with his uncle having died on one of their missions. But this is actually a part of his memory, and this appears to be when he's taken by the fog. Um, he seemed to describe a falling, like he was like falling and spinning, and then as he gets nauseated, he's like, and what comes out of his mouth is black fog. That would have been pretty crazy, but this is what I want. This is the reason why I brought this memory in. If you look at the last two paragraphs, he's like, "I'm not going to be lost in this place. I am Vito, and blah 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 blah, and I seek the great observers who live beyond existence. I want all they know." In his research, he found our observer, or apparently multiple references through different cultures, and he's like, "I know about these Muppets, and I want to know everything they know." The interesting thing in the last paragraph, though, is when the fog took him, it put him in a village, a random abandoned village. I don't know the significance of the fog dropping him off in a village. Do we have any maps that it's an
Yeah,
abandoned village?
the map that came out with chapter 26 is an abandoned, destroyed village.
Oh, really? I'm gonna have to go back and look at
Yeah.
that. I'm not really great about like associating the maps with who the survivor is in the chapters,
Yeah,
but
so it's kind of like a small farm house in a village. It's got like it's got like the main barn-ish area. The main building is kind of like a little bit like a barn.
hmm.
Um and the outside of the map, the area surrounding it, you can see other like houses and barns and sheds and stuff like that.
Interesting, interesting. So, hold on a second. And then, what in terms of skill set? Yeah, I see. There's a little bit of potential. I mean, not it doesn't feel really super great, but what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on where he is? What's his outcome?
I'm going to say Parrish because
Really?
he's not super. He probably doesn't have a whole lot of physical fortitude, seeing as he went through some night training, but turned against it and got sent off to learn more scholarly stuff. To And while he has while he's very smart and does have some level of mental fortitude, at the time, as he's getting captured and drawn into the fog, it says that it was his last attempt as he was giving up on life. So I think,
Oh,
you know,
interesting. Yeah. You're
so
right.
I think that comes back to bite him. I think if he goes long enough without finding the observer, he eventually just gives up.
Interesting. There it is. Yeah, he was about to surrender to hunger and despair. There it is. You're absolutely right on that. All right, Human, what do you think about him?
I would have said thrive based on most of his abilities, but I do have to go with Ricky on his mental fortitude just isn't there. He's quick to give up and doesn't seem the type to be able to escape or survive very long.
Interesting. My thoughts. I see this is the guy who's like going to the library and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go read a lot of books, and he's a bookworm, which is there's nothing wrong with being a bookworm. I mean, I read a lot of books myself, but um, I think that when he had the opportunity to be trained as a future knight, he's like, nah, I don't want anything. He refused to fight the squire, and ironically, the squire was told like just like force him to fight, and the guy slips and falls on his own knife, and then he has the guilt of like killing a squire, and he's like, I'm never gonna touch anything again. Like I'm never gonna like touch any or harm anybody again. And so he has this remorse and guilt from like killing a squire, a training squire. And he's like, no, I don't see any physical fortitude. This Muppet's like tripping on his shoelaces. Mental fortitude, I think he's driven by knowledge, but just the pursuit of knowledge is not enough to make it in the realm of the entity.
I do want to add one thing real quick.
Yeah.
I think that he does provide additional mental fortitude to the people around him. I think that his presence provides, the presence of him and his, the fact that he knows about the observer, his knowledge, what limited knowledge he has of what's going on in the entity's domain, provides other people additional mental fortitude. I just don't think by himself he has the mental fortitude to handle it. So I think other people can survive longer because he's around, but I think he can't survive by himself.
Okay, so here's a question. Yeah. So here's a question for either of you or both of you. What if he takes Ada's approach and becomes an information dealer and says, "Hey, like what did you learn in your last match? What do you see? Tell me about like," and he starts hoarding information and collecting information. What happens if he starts changing his philosophy to gather more and more information about the entity? Is that enough to intellectually get him out?
I feel like he'd be like super guilty about that.
Yeah, I feel like his guilty conscience drives too much into it. I think there's a way that the two things could coexist though. I think what would eventually happen, the only way for him to survive and potentially escape would be for him to be like, all right, I'll share all the knowledge I have with you guys, but you have to have my back. Mentally, physically, you've got to have my back. And I think that's something where, in a team effort, with the right people, not with just anyone, but with the right people, like Detective Tap, like Quinn, he could potentially survive longer, and maybe if they find a way to escape before he perishes, obviously escape. But I think overall, just without that kind of deal being made of, I'll share all this knowledge with you, but you guys need to help boost me up after a rough day.
Right.
I don't think he survives. I don't think he has the ability to survive off his own mental fortitude.
Interesting. Okay, I can buy that. All right, so this I believe we are entering into
Yay,
yeah,
D&D.
D&D land. All right, so give us the highlight reel. We're about an hour and 10 minutes in, which we're not rushing. We don't have to rush. We're perfectly fine. But share the highlight reel of what you know about him.
So Astri and Bearmar arrived together in Greyhawk to trade songs and stories with locals, but what they learned sent them on an adventure. They found out there was a new magic unlike any other spreading across the land, and the forces of evil were disappearing from every corner of the land, leaving no trace of their malevolence. Sounds like a good thing, right? Wrong, because when bad things disappear and you don't know where they went, that means something bad's about to happen. Um, Together, this group of adventurers traveled, also known as the Troop of Adventurers, traveled through the swamplands and under mountains, and every once in a while they would find someone nice enough to provide them food, shelter, and information. Um, they wrote down everything they found out, and ended up in the kingdom of Kaeland, where people spoke of an ancient tower emerging from its ruins, being instantly rebuilt, bigger and stronger than it ever was. This was confirmed when they made their way south. People did not seem to have not liked speaking about it and were very quiet about it. But Astri knew the place by its reputation. They were traveling to the Rotted Tower, stronghold of the Archlich Vecna. As they drew closer and closer to the Rotted Tower, the troop could feel evil magic in the air. They steeled themselves for a fight with Vecna, but were shocked to find the Rotted Tower was completely empty. They made their way up the spiral staircase, passing by window after window of shattered stained glass until they reached the top of the tower. Amidst the debris, Estri found a hastily written scroll. Bearmer was eager to show off his proficiency in Arcana. He studied the scroll and realized the words were an incantation written phonetically. He sang the words aloud, big mistake, and the tower began to rumble. Black fog crept in through the stone floor. Astri stopped Bearmar from his recitation, but it was too late. The fog took hold of the adventurers, and within moments they were gone.
Man, that's a story, isn't it? This is a picture not from Dead by Daylight, but the best I could tell is maybe like one of the other console games. I think. I apologize. I didn't write down the source, but
I could be entirely wrong, but that looks like one of the D&D games.
yeah. But I believe that's them. It had their names written on the file name. So, all right, since this is your hero, what do you think? What do you think about him?
Okay, so I'm gonna be a little biased because of my love for D&D, but
Okay.
um, physically, I mean, based on the fact they were based on both their perks and the fact that they were trading songs and stories, it seems like they might both be bards. Not a whole lot of physical ability there. However, very high charisma. I mean, the whole joke about bards in D&D is they seduce dragons all the time. So like they're very high in charisma. So they're very good at persuading people to share information with them and help them out in different ways. Um, being adventurers in the Forgotten Realms, especially in the coming from the area of Greyhawk,
Mm-hmm.
um, there's likely a lot of mental fortitude. I mean, the Forgotten Realms is just a horrid place to live. I've done a lot of lore study on the Forgotten Realms. If you want to be an adventurer in the Forgotten Realms, it takes a lot of mental fortitude.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause there's so much messed up stuff in there.
Okay.
Um, so I think mentally they do pretty well. Their perks seem pretty decent. Mentally, I don't think their mental perishes that badly. And going off the idea that since they're from the D&D universe, as they go and survive and win throughout the trials, they get stronger and stronger. I think eventually they find their way out, especially with the fact they're high charisma. They can, they get other people to help them easily. I think they get out. I don't think they entirely get out on their own merits. I don't think they discover the way out by themselves. But I think through the combination of their high charisma, their background in the Forgotten Realms, and adventuring in the Forgotten Realms, and just the fact that as adventurers, they just get stronger and stronger as they complete each adventure, and they might see each trial as a new adventure. Um, Learning more from it and getting stronger from it. I think eventually they find their way out with a group of people.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Human, what do you got? What do you think?
I would say, based off of my personal experience with D&D, that individually, as long as they are able to grow and the entity doesn't stop them, they could both escape just on their own due to their own abilities. If the entity does limit them to simply what they have right now, I don't think they would really be able to. They would probably just survive.
Okay, now I have two questions. Two questions and one statement. All right, so the first question is this Rotted Tower, is this actually a place in D&D? Like if you buy like a D&D book, are you going to see the Rotted Tower in lore someplace?
Specifically, if you buy the adventures that mention Vecna.
Okay.
Yes, I think
it's
it's the
not.
Greyhawk.
Yeah. It's not super. It's not mentioned. I think it might be mentioned in a couple other books, but it's not like a super big deal in most of the D&D books.
Mm-hmm.
But anything about Greyhawk, especially about Vecna, including the new adventure that was released, the new official adventure that was released. What was it, 2 years ago? Around the same time as the Vecna season of around a year after the Vecna season of Stranger Things, I think. Um, the Rotted Tower is a big deal. It's the home of Vecna. It's full of his power. Everything within miles of it is corrupted with Vecna's power.
So
Like
if a
it's pretty
person's like a
dope.
DM, if a person's DM, master, a DM, if a DM is like building an adventure, I mean, is this Rotted Tower? Is this going to be like the end game? Like we got to loot this place and we got to face like
Yeah.
and loot this place, and this is like the center of the end game, like that kind of place.
From what I've heard, you do not go up against Vecna unless
Oh.
you are at least level 16.
From what I've heard from my friends, usually it's just like you're fighting all these random little people, and then Vecna is doing his own thing where he's mentioned here and there.
Yeah.
He's more of a secretive guy than a come fight me in
Yeah.
my tower guy.
Yeah, that's also true. Vecna, it tends to be more secretive, but
Covert, yeah.
from what I've heard in the actual adventure where you go and kill Vecna, um, if you don't have at least seventh level spells, which I believe is like level 15 or something like that, or
I think
13
so.
or 15, um,
You're gonna
it's
get
level
smoked.
13 because 15 is 8th level, 17 is 9th level. Anyways, if you don't have at least 7th level spells, you don't stand a chance against Vecna. Like
Interesting.
Vecna is extremely powerful.
Now here's another Dead by Daylight question. Um, when they went all the way to the top of the tower, they didn't find him. Do we think that um, Vecna has already entered the fog at this point in time, and that's the reason why he's not in the tower, because he left willingly before they like searched and found this tower, or just some other random
Likely,
reason?
knowing what I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about Vecna's lore, but knowing what little I do, if he discovered the fog, having some domain in his tower of some sort, or via that scroll, maybe that scroll was written by Vecna, um, and in that case, he may have gone into the fog willingly, as a chance to try and seek more power.
He actually did, and we're gonna learn about him next
Yeah,
week. We won't spoil that, but
yeah,
so we think that maybe like Vecna is like already in the trial grounds, and that's the reason why he's not in the Rotted Tower.
yeah.
Interesting, interesting. And what are my thoughts? I think if I'm a killer and I see them pull up their banjo out, I'm like ending them. I'm absolutely ending them. If they like get their banjo out, their little guitar, I am absolutely going to end them. I put them at like a flashlight player. Um, and I'm being facetious, but bards. I'll admit I apparently do not realize their significance in the D&D community. I had them as like perishing because they're like Muppets. But apparently in D&D, like they're like way better than I realize. And so
Yeah,
they're
if they're
not
ready
going to
to take on
perish.
Vecna, they're powerful.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, if they get their guitar out at the campfire and I'm the killer, like nah, they're done. They're
Yeah,
cooked. And I'm being goofy, of course. It's just kind of like a joke on a bard. Like the bards are like the the quirky characters that are played. I'm just being funny about that. But
Yeah,
I
that's completely fair. I mean straight up as I've I played Bard once, and I decided to play random songs one too many times in the campaign, and my DM just decided that every big enemy we ran into after that would just automatically target me. It was a good time.
that's great. So as we move on to Laura Croft, um, wow, I mean she has a legacy of story lore before Dead by Daylight ever was a thing.
I've never
But
played a single Tomb Raider game.
yeah, I played one years ago, but it could be noted and should be noted that she is a very curious person. She's extremely athletic. Um, she made friends with Samantha, and you can pronounce the last name, but basically, uh, Samantha was basically her balance to her seriousness. Like, you're way too serious. You need to have some fun and have a little bit of life, other than like being in schools and museums. And so she was kind of a balance to the lifestyle that Laura was already living. They went on an expedition to an island, and things got kind of out of hand, and there was an aggressive group that was you know in that area that they ended up having to deal with. Unfortunately, um, yeah, that Alora is trying to save Samantha, and shoots an arrow, taking out a torchbearer, but she's outnumbered and captured, beaten by the Brotherhood. As two guards lead her over a natural stone bridge, an unnatural black fog envelops them. Her captors are distracted. She breaks free and jumps off the bridge into a river of blood. What? And then as she sinks, dozens of limbs reach out at her, grabbing at her, tearing at her bow, which is her primary weapon, pulling her under the river of blood. It was as if the river was alive. She kicked and struggled to reach the surface. At last, she emerged from the sick viscera and found herself in a completely new nightmare. And so basically, she wasn't taken by the fog, but here we see the second time she's not taken by the water, but she's taken by a river of blood and pulled under. Uh, right? Oh no, it's gonna get real next week. Absolutely. And then I tried to find a picture of the two of them together. This is the best picture of the ones that I found. And so on the left is Laura, and on the right is Samantha. Laura and Sam. So what do we think? Finesse, hardened. I mean, I think her skills, her perks are like, they're. I've seen some of these used. Physical fortitude. She is like, again, she's like crazy physical condition. As a female, like very, very physically fit. Mental fortitude. My goodness, if you're willing to jump off a bridge into a river of blood, like you're pretty mentally strong. Mental fortitude, absolutely. I think she's absolutely thriving. She's gonna get it. I don't think she's gonna be like, I'm just gonna go alone. I think she's gonna take people with her, and more importantly, she has an anchor. She's looking for Sam, and if she finds out that Sam wasn't captured by the entity, she'll be willing to escape with others. But if she has any information that indicates that Sam is still like in the entity's realm, she's staying until she can escape with Sam. But I think she absolutely can thrive. I see her as like a really strong lore character. Absolutely. Thoughts? Anyone want to add?
I don't have any experience with the games, but I've seen some of the Lara Croft movies. And I agree, she's definitely capable of thriving. She's definitely capable of escaping. Um, and I agree that I don't think she leaves without Sam. I also don't think she just leaves without people in general. I don't think she, like in the movies, one thing that's a constant is that she is more than willing to, in many cases, she puts the artifact, the recovery of an artifact at risk to try and protect whoever came with her and keep them safe and make sure they get back alive.
Yeah.
Um, so I think she's definitely one of those where she will find a way to escape. and she will be able to escape, but she opts to not leave by herself. She opts to instead go and find other people and bring them with her on the way out. Um, and one thing that just crossed my mind, because she came in, she's looking for Sam. I think it would be really funny, not likely, but really funny, if Dead by Daylight decided to do something where Sam becomes a killer.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
It would
That
be
that would be pretty
absolutely
crazy.
it would be absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
Do
Or
I think they'll
yeah.
do it? No. Do I think it would be hilarious? Yes.
Now here's another thing that they should consider is what if Sam was an alternate skin art for the Laura character?
I
Same
feel like
perks,
that's
same
pretty
perks,
likely.
but then like
That's
you pay like the
that's not,
$20 or whatever and you get like her as an alternate skin.
They could do
Like
lore on like how both of them are separated and they just can't find each other.
yeah. And
and
they
then
kind of did that with the Grimes, Rick Grimes and Michonne, and then they have who's I should know this, Daryl. Daryl is the alt art skin.
I think one thing I do want to add on to her escaping, I actually think she doesn't escape until she finds Sarah, because her focus on finding Sarah becomes so important, would be so important to her that takes priority over figuring out how to escape.
Yeah, I think Samantha and finding her is like definitely the number one. I agree with that.
Samantha.
Yeah, definitely.
Wrong name, but you get
No,
the
yeah, I
idea.
get the point. I get the point. So yeah, so she's definitely like trying to help her friend find her friend and help her friend escape. Definitely. So I think she makes it. And then Trevor. Trevor. All right, what do you got?
So I am actually horrible at remembering lore from Castlevanias, so
Okay.
I'm going to mostly just skim through this instead of
Sure.
my own knowledge.
Yeah, that's fine.
But the Belmonts in 1200 whatever Europe, 1476 Europe, were well known as like the anti-evil clan of warriors. They were like considered knights, some of them. Like they were just really held up by the countries of the area. Trevor, hearing that the Romanian countryside was being attacked by a powerful vampire called Dracula, goes to help them. He manages to kill Dracula using his vampire killer whip. Eventually, the undead and the whatever it's called, the dread feeling in him, he started realizing, or he thought that Dracula was coming back again, and then people started disappearing in the village near where he lived, and then he, while he's visiting the village to figure out what happened, there's a fog starts coming out of the ground. So he tries to reach for his whip because he thinks that he's going to start fighting people again, and it's gone.
Yeah.
He has his whip is just taken from him. And then in an instant, he is gone into a different place, and he doesn't know what's happening.
Nice. What do you think? What lead us in your thoughts? What do you think? Is he making it? Is he thriving, surviving, perishing?
I would probably say survive. Knowing how the Castlevania games usually go, they are really resourceful and strong people mentally and physically. Being able to, fight a vampire and all.
Right.
So
and not just a vampire, the most legendary, strongest in all vampire lore. Dracula is it. Like he beat the big guy. Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't think that he has enough supernatural sense to be able to escape or understand the entity, but he would absolutely be able to manipulate his way around trials.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
Interesting. Ricky, you want to share anything, or are you good?
My opinion is, if I remember correctly, in this chapter, Dracula was also added as a killer. So
Yes.
my thought process is he wouldn't thrive simply because I think he has the potential to get there, especially if he works with other people,
Hmm.
but he wouldn't even think to look for an escape because he would be more focused on stopping Dracula from succeeding.
So you think that he would willingly stay in the entity realm just to try to find a
Yeah.
way of ending Dracula, his mortal enemy? Like
Yeah,
he
I
would he
think
would take it
he
as a
wouldn't like
personal mission.
it wouldn't even be a matter of willingly staying in the realm. He just wouldn't search for an escape because he's like, my job is to end Dracula. That is all I'm here to do. So
Interesting.
there's no reason for him to try to escape because the one thing he is built to do, the one thing he was born for, is right there in the realm
Interesting.
at the same time.
Over a short period of time, he'd eventually figure out Dracula's like here, and then he'd
Yeah,
be like, "Oh, you guys want to escape? Well, just go on, peasants. Just leave, and I'll take care of him." Okay, very
yeah.
very good. So he's willingly staying. Even if he had the opportunity to escape and thrive, he's sticking around just to deal with Dracula. Interesting. Human, any thoughts on this?
I think that's completely valid. Uh, I don't know if his moment of glory kind of gives it away, but he's got a pretty big ego. Especially in the Netflix TV show. You should watch that. It's good.
Oh, okay.
Uh, he, I think, would probably stay simply because he wants to make sure that Dracula is actually dead.
All right? So say he finds a way of like ending Dracula like time after time. Do you think that after he realizes that the entity is just bringing them all back to the campfire or back to the forest, that he's like, oh, it doesn't make a difference how many times I kill Dracula, he's never going away?
I think he would probably try to find a way to stop it. I don't think he would be able to, but I think he would keep trying just
Hmm,
repeatedly.
interesting.
I think, just given what little I know about the lore from this, I think his focus on ending Dracula and preventing vampires from ever being able to touch humanity again,
Right.
um, he would stay as long as it takes to make sure Dracula can never return,
Interesting. Interesting.
even if that means staying for eternity.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think very valid points. And now this is a special character, compliments of human, and human, you're gonna have to help me out with if this is like lore from that you've like homebrewed, or if this is like from another part of like the Castlevania storyline. You're gonna have to help us a little bit on
So
sharing this.
most, if not all, of the text on this slide was directly from Dead by Daylight lore.
Oh, okay.
However, there is some, like, a lot of people are theorizing stuff, but I'm not gonna mention it because that's not directly mentioned.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
So, Dracula has a whole history of revenge. That's like half of his thing is, oh, I'm gonna kill all the humans in the area
Hmm.
because they wronged me.
Right.
And that is the main reason why uh, Alucard is such a figure in Castlevania and why he was brought into Dead by Daylight,
Mm-hmm.
is that Dracula had a wife that they had a half human, half vampire hybrid child together.
Okay.
And then a bit after the child was born, I think it's like a year or so, uh, the local humans burn the wife as a witch.
Okay.
So Dracula, being the guy that he is, trains the half vampire to fight for him and be like his second in command.
Hmm.
Uh, the human part of Alucard, his conscience is a bit more developed than Dracula's.
Okay.
He listens to what his mother wanted for Dracula, and he tries to force him to believe in that way of thinking instead of just revenging the death of his wife or mother.
Okay. And so,
Uh,
and then, how did the entity take him?
so when I do believe it was Julius and Julius Belmont and Alucard. Like Alucard or Dracula keeps coming back over and over. Trevor kills him, and then he comes back, and then he dies, and then he comes back. It's a recurring thing.
Oh.
Uh, so Trevor got taken, and then Alucard was asleep at the time. Like he was resting, waiting for something to happen that he was needed for.
Mm-hmm.
He is awoken by Julius, who wants to kill his father that's come back to, again, kill the humans. They successfully kill him, but as Dracula is dying, the fog shows up, and he goes and hides in the fog. And Alucard, not wanting to let him resurrect again, follows him.
Interesting. Now, I will say this. I was not familiar with this particular character, Alucard, and so I searched very little on the internet. But I was trying to find, like, if they're in video games or, like, just random web pages. I think I found a decent picture of him. And so I'll share that. But again, like Alucard, it seems like he has a very interesting story. But I think I found a picture that probably is most accurate, and so I'll share that with you. This is what I found on the internet that I think is relevant. So Alucard, yeah. I think that's the most accurate picture I could find of him, related to Castlevania. I couldn't resist. I just had to do it. All right, so let's go on. These are the last two, I think. Rick Grimes, man, that you just, well, you're gonna have to watch, like, what, 25 seasons of Walking Dead to get all of his lore. But notice, he can adapt to the harsh new world. He was a cop, or a sheriff, more precisely. He was really big on, like, not killing humans. Well, that lasted a little bit of time, and then that kind of faded pretty quick. But he was always a leader of whatever survivor groups that he came across. He had a endless sense of duty, and so he never like gave up this this moral compass that governed, like, his decision makings. His big thing was, we don't end people, because when we end people, we cease to be human, and thus we have to maintain our integrity to, like, save whatever was left of us. How was he taken? He was trying to take care of some zombies as they were crossing over a bridge. He set off explosives. This event can be seen at the very end of the Walking Dead series, and in the actual, like, TV show. He's caught in the blast. He's thrown to the ground. Black fog billows over his vision. He loses consciousness, and then somewhere in the darkness, he hears Michonne calling for him. And with his last strength, he reaches out, but then he only sees the chilling fog and the crackling sounds of a campfire. That's where he's sent, is to the campfire. I think for physical fortitude, I mean, he is a sheriff, so he has physical training. And if you watch the TV show, I mean, he goes through, like, he gets tortured, and he has, like, he has so many physical challenges that he has to overcome to survive in this Walking Dead world. He absolutely is, like, physically strong, mentally fortitude. Like, this is one of those characters where he just goes on and on and on, and he just keeps on surviving. Everybody is dying around him, but he just keeps on living. Is he smart enough to get out intellectually? No, I don't think he's smart enough intellectually to get out. But I think he can survive with people's help, and he is absolutely never going to give up. He's always going to keep on fighting. And so I think he's never going to perish. I think he can only thrive if he is matched with intellectual survivors to help him, but an absolute top tier surviving character. and he's gonna outlive a lot of people. After a lot of people get sent to the void, he's still gonna be kicking. He's absolutely making. What you got for thoughts?
I think he doesn't escape just based on a couple things. One, based on the fact that he was hearing Michonne through, in the darkness calling out for him.
Yep.
He's going to search and search and search until he finds Michonne, regardless if he and his group find a way out.
Right.
The second is, I think even if he finds Michonne, he may choose to stay. The two of them together even might choose to stay behind and stay um, in the fog, so that when new survivors show up and have been captured by the entity and show up, they can lead them out and then stay back and continue helping people out over and over again.
Okay.
I think the fog becomes his new home, just like how he adapted to the world of The Walking Dead.
Interesting. Yeah.
I think he adapts to. So I think he survives. He thrives in concept of he turns it into his new home. But I don't think he. I think he chooses not to escape time and time again, so he can continue to help other people escape.
Interesting. And then just like in the TV show, he's constantly like taking on new survivors.
Yeah.
Like trying his best to think of like thinking the best of people until they prove him wrong.
Yeah, and like the fact that at least from what I've seen, I'm not very far in the TV show. Don't worry, I don't care about spoilers. But I'm not very far in the TV show. But from what I've seen, time and time again, he puts himself in a position where it's like, all right, I will stay back and keep the walkers at bay while you escape, and
Yeah.
I won't leave until every last one of you has left.
Yeah. He's
Um,
he's the survivor that's gonna take the body block for you. Like gets you
Yeah.
unhooked, and then he'd be like, run on, just get on out of here. I'll take the hit. And then
Yeah.
this guy is like he's taking the body hits, like after he unhooks
So
the survivor.
yeah,
Absolutely.
so I think overall, he definitely, especially if paired with someone like Quinn, can escape. He definitely figures out how to escape and has the chance to time after time.
Hmm.
I think he actively chooses not to time after time.
Interesting. Interesting. Human, you have anything to add or thoughts? What does he survive, perish, thrive? What you got?
I was going the same direction, but more in that he himself probably wouldn't be able to escape because uh he's not he probably wouldn't be able to figure out how the entity fully works to escape, but while he's in the fog, he would be able to help people. Same idea that Rick had.
Hmm.
Uh, if somebody else does manage to find a way to escape, I think it would be probably with his assistance.
Interesting. Interesting. I I
I would
I
let him survive.
Yeah, I concur. I think he willingly stays. He willingly stays to help people. And he in the TV show, he time and time again he'd go out of his way to like help others, even when it wasn't convenient for him or his group. I agree. We go on to the last, I believe the last character of the night, Michonne Grimes. Some highlights. She did everything she could to protect her loved ones. It didn't quite work out, but she had a mental break. In the TV show, she had a mental break and uh, she has her two companions like walking as zombies on like basically a leash, and she takes their teeth out, and her companions are like walking with her, and she can just walk through a zombie crowd because like the smell of death just surrounds her because of her two dead companions. Alone, emotionally hardened. She was like a head case when Rick's group found her in the TV show. Rick is like, you need to like absolutely end these. They're zombies. They need to go down. And she's like, blah. Let me tell you my story. Blah 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 blah. It could be said in her lore that she's a dependable partner in combat. She's faithful friend. She is like crazy skill with that sword, but obviously swords don't go into the trials. So she's very strong, but she's not bringing that weapon in. Nor is Rick bringing his revolver. So the weapons that they used every single day, like all the time in Walking Dead realm, lost to the entity.
Seems
She's
sketchy.
going to find Rick. That's why she went into the unexplored territory. She willingly went looking for Rick when I believe she heard. No, she didn't hear a voice, but she felt like he was still out there. How was she taken by the fog? She hears a voice, and it's like really weak, and she's crawling towards the voice of Rick, and this tunnel gets smaller, 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 and then she gets to a point where it's so tight, the tunnel is so narrow that she leaves her sword, her treasured sword, behind, and she keeps on moving forward, and a pinhole of light appears on the horizon, not the sun, but a campfire, and she finds herself at the campfire. In terms of her perks, yeah, they're there. They're okay. Physically, she's really strong. Like in the TV show, if the lore is consistent with physical fortitude, she is like strong, strong. Um, in terms of mental fortitude, no, she had a mental breakdown before she was picked up by the Rick Grimes group. Um, I think she's fiercely loyal, and she's gonna stay in the entity realm to try to find Rick and be reunited. But she's already had a mental breakdown, and I think her mental breakdown. I think she finds strength by her friends and her family, but alone she would like crack. So at best, I see her as a survivor. I don't think she ever has a chance of escaping unless someone is literally carrying her, like intellectually, mentally. Physically, she can handle it, but she's if she doesn't have clues that Rick is still alive, her mental fortitude is going to absolutely crack, and then she will eventually perish. That's my thoughts on it. So her mental fortitude, and as low as it is tied to whether she thinks Rick is still alive. But she will not leave the realm until she leaves with Rick. But she's not a top tier survivor by any means, lore wise at least. What are their thoughts? They're the last survivor of the night.
Overall, I agree. Like, and I don't know much about Michonne Walking Dead lore wise. I haven't gotten to the point in the show where she appears yet. But just from looking at, the sword she's wielding in the picture, it appears to be a katana from this angle.
It is.
And as someone who used to do a little bit of fencing and uh, specifically Korean fencing as part of Taekwondo, um, with my weapon of choice being the katana, um, it takes the katana takes both physical and mental fortitude to wield, because you have to be very specific with your strikes, and so especially when learning to wield one, if you do not have your alignment right, which is very much the case when you're learning, it's very easy to get frustrated with a katana. Um, Katanas are kind of a medium weight sword, and there's a lot of movement involved with katana, a lot of full body movements. There's a lot of physical fortitude required to be skillful with a katana. The training process builds up a lot of mental fortitude, but seeing as she had the breakdown, there that shows a lack of mental fortitude. So I think physically she can hack it. Mentally, what I think happens is, as like you said, as long as she thinks Rick is still alive, she can keep going for that purpose of my husband's still out there somewhere. I've got to find him.
Right.
And once she reunites with Rick, I think at that point, just being there with Rick will keep her going for as long as she needs to go. So if she can find Rick, she could potentially find a way out, or at least not find the way out, but she could,
She'd have the
get out because
option of it.
she could have the option of escape. But I think eventually, if she goes long enough without being reunited with Rick, she her mental fortitude runs out and she gets tossed to the void. So I don't think like straight survive is necessarily the way to go with her. I think without Rick perish, with Rick escape, and with Rick and friends escape.
Interesting.
With Rick and only with Rick survive. So I think it's dependent on if she finds Rick and if they have friends.
Interesting. Human, what are your thoughts on Michonne Grimes?
I would agree with Rick in that if she is alone for too long, she does eventually break down. I think I just read it at the end of the other thing there is that after Rick died, she got kind of not all there.
Right?
So I do believe that she would probably perish if she was left alone or if all of the people around her are constantly dying. I think that would creep on her very fast.
Interesting.
If she does find Rick, though, I think they would probably survive, but I don't think those two are able to figure out the entity and are able to escape on their own.
Right. I think they still need an intellectual, someone that has intellectual or savant level intelligence. I agree on that. Okay, so here's the last
maybe
question
something
about
like
her.
Clinton.
All right, say she finds Rick. Rick is willing to stay to help others. That is his driving force, and that goes back to when he was before the zombie, the Walker universe started. He was a sheriff, so he lived to like help people. Do you think Michonne is like, well, whatever you want to do, you want to stay? Okay, that's fine. Or do you think she's like, I can't handle this. We need to get out of here, Rick. We need to leave. I can't handle this. What do you think?
I think this is where the first few episodes of season 1 of The Walking Dead come in. Rick's biggest interest above all else is protecting his family, his wife and son.
Right.
Now, I know obviously his first wife dies eventually and he just has his son. Okay, I understand that. But above all else, he wants to protect his family.
Right.
So I think once reunited with Michonne, if they find a way out, that would be the one case in which he chooses to leave because he cares more about protecting his wife and his kids than he does about protecting everyone else. I think like even just watching The Walking Dead, I think if there were a situation where it's protect his wife and son or let his wife and son die so the rest of the group can survive, I think in that situation he would actually sacrifice the rest of the group.
Okay, so do you care about spoilers?
I don't care about spoilers.
Now,
if I am wrong about this, please let me know.
No,
I'm not huge on spoilers. I still like the story either way.
Now, it references the event of the fog taking them at the bridge, and that actually is a scene in the last season of The Walking Dead, right? But at this point in time, Carl, which is Rick's son, is already dead. His previous wife is already dead. And Judith, his daughter, is young at this point in time. So basically, if my lore is correct, Michonne is taking care of Judith, the small child, or the small daughter of Carl. And so at this point in time, Rick has already lost his oldest son, Carl, and his wife to childbirth. And the only remaining family, other than this marriage of being married to Michonne, is his daughter, Judith. And so he definitely has family. Family with Michonne being in the realm, but Judith being in the real world.
I think at the end of the day, they would go back. There's a couple possibilities here. I think at the end of the day, they go back and try to protect Judith. If it turns out that Judith, by the time they get back, enough time has passed that Judith is no longer alive, I think then they potentially even try to seek out and go back into the fog to get everyone else out.
Interesting. All right, so Human, what are your thoughts on Michonne as we're right there at the end?
I don't think I have really much else on her personally.
He's like, just make it end. We're almost at 2 hours. Make it end.
I'm hungry, man.
I got you. All right. So we have ran the gauntlet. I think we had like 15 survivors, which is the reason why we took a lot extra time. Um, and we already got the final comment from Human. He's hungry. I know Ricky probably wants to get some sleep and feel a little bit better. So I think unless there's any big last thoughts, this is the last segment on survival. The survivors. Anything else either of you want to add before we wander off? About
thing I
how
want
about
to add
all
is
survivors? All survivors.
the last thing I want to add is just something that I looked up while we were going through the D&D character, the D&D chapter.
Sure.
So one thing that's interesting is D&D and Stranger or and Dead by Daylight are kind of a perfect collaboration because in D&D there is one dreadlord who is very I don't remember his name, but he is very similar to the entity, including the existence of his own separate pocket dimension where he captures people and sends them to that pocket dimension so he can feed off their fear. But unlike the entity, when the entity is done with someone, he just throws them into the void. This Dreadlord sends them back into the Forgotten Realms so that they can regain hope so he can take them and use them again.
Now, when we get to
I-
the final killer
that's-
segment, Human, are you going to make the connection of the Demogorgon to what's his face?
You can if you want to. I think
Okay.
you're the one with the killer there.
I'll have to dig around. I don't. I'll have to look for information on that connection. But Human, any thoughts from you before we wrap it up?
Just generally about the group we went over today, most of them are incredibly skilled physically or mentally.
Right.
So, I do think most of them are, or like, not many of them are gonna perish. Most of them are gonna at least survive for quite a while.
Interesting. Yeah. So we had a strong group. There's a lot of good options. And next week, which is the last week of this series, we're going to talk about the last few killers. And so that'll be fun. But let's conclude on the campfire, which we saw over and over tonight. When you think you're escaping, when you think you're getting out, you're not getting out. She did escape, but not the way she thought. She did not survive and escape the way she thought. Oh my gosh. All of them are here.
We got out.
Didn't quite get out, but it was an absolute joy as always. And Ricky and Human, thank you for being a part of it. And so, what a great night. We talked about so many good survivors. And that being said, next week is our 5th and final week of the series when we talk about the remaining killers. We just kind of like picked a few of them that we think would be fun to cover. And again, thank you for being a part of tonight. And otherwise, I hope everybody has a great night. And so be good. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye.